Well, hello and welcome to yet another webinar on our consumer behavior series. Today we're going to have a lot to unpack because we're presenting the result not only of one, but actually two of our AIA consumer behavior series reports. So we released one last week on maintenance and repair, and we'll have a link for you in the chat if you want to access that report. But we're also going to talk about our next report called Dealership versus Independent, which is all about how Canadian vehicle owners are choosing their service provider. And that's going to be out on April 21st. So stay posted. If you haven't yet signed up to our newsletter, well, I encourage you to do so you stay informed of the release. And once again, we'll drop a link in the chat if you would like to sign up for our newsletter. Now, before we get going, I want to recognize that these webinars and research project would not be possible without the continuous financial support from our sponsors. We continue to support the association and the automotive aftermarket. So again, thank you to you. You are the leaders of this industry, and we thank you for your generosity. So let's get on with the show. Our speakers today are once again the lead for this research project. First off, Rick Nadeau, who has led the project. Good morning, Rick.
Good morning, JF. Happy to be here.
Thank you, Rick. Glad to have you back. And also returning to provide context and inputs, we also have James Channer returning. Good afternoon, James.
Afternoon, JF. Thanks for having me again, and good to see you as well, Rick.
Well, thank you. So we are going to cover all of the research project in about 4 segments. And the first segments we're going to cover right now is on the knowledge and the importance of maintenance and repair of vehicle. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Rick to present the results of that research.
Merci, Jean-François. I think before we even touch on some of the data, I think it's important for everyone who's watching here today to understand how this data was collected. If you haven't had the benefit of watching one of these webinars before, important for you to understand that this data actually goes back to early June 2021, and the data was collected via a national online panel of Canadian households, more specifically vehicle owners. So what we would call a pretty big sample size there, 2,000 vehicle owners. And again, a reminder that this was done collected in June 2021. To the actual meat of some of these results, we felt that it was important to start off our webinar today by giving a little bit of a lay of the land in terms of where are vehicle owners' heads in terms of how much they feel they know about maintenance and repair, generally how important is maintenance and repair to them. So Jeff, let's have a look at that first slide and get an initial sense of how knowledgeable do vehicle owners feel they are when it comes to repair and maintenance. Roughly 1 in 10 would tell us that on a good old-fashioned 4-point scale that they are very knowledgeable. Another 45% saying they are somewhat knowledgeable. And then you have towards the lower end of the scale, 13% who are sensing they're not at all knowledgeable. Now, of course, this is self-perceived knowledge. We didn't test them. We didn't have them sitting in under a hood or under a hoist or anything to test whether they are really knowledgeable. So perhaps those who are watching this webinar are in a better position to assess, well, really are half the people who are walking into our shops, are they really knowledgeable? In any event, what's important to gather as well is that these numbers are not uniform across all respondents, across all Canadians. We can see there on the right-hand side that men are 5 times more likely to proclaim themselves as very knowledgeable compared to women, 15% versus 3. And again, in terms of overall knowledge, men are more likely to feel they are in fact knowledgeable compared to women. Across age brackets, we can see there that there really isn't much of a difference from the younger to the older vehicle owners when it comes to being very knowledgeable. But overall knowledge, we see there that there is a sense that the older I am, and probably because I've owned more vehicles in my lifetime, I'm sensing that I'm more knowledgeable with that. A little bit of a dip there at the higher age end of 65 plus. So again, when it comes to we're already starting to sense that if we're going to be having conversations with vehicle owners, maybe that conversation is going to have to be a little bit different depending on demographics. Next slide, we get a sense now in terms of how important maintenance and repair is to your average vehicle owner. Now, a majority are telling us, folks, that M&R is a high priority for them. 59% are telling us it's a high priority, 37% saying it's a medium priority. The remainder, which is less than 1 out of 10, are saying that it's not a priority at all. Now, a majority are telling us it's a high priority, and yet in this same survey, we're finding that only 30% are following their maintenance schedule very, very closely. So again, interesting how that conversation needs to start taking shape when a vehicle owner comes into the shop is saying that they are very or somewhat knowledgeable, and that, again, vehicle maintenance is a high priority for them, and yet, the plurality are telling us that they more or less follow their maintenance schedule. On to the next slide, JF. Again, we're seeing that the extent to which M&R is seen as a priority does in fact vary across demographics, right? Again, from an age perspective, a very stark slope there as it goes from 18 to 34 to 65 and over, much less of a priority among the younger cohorts, and it becomes an increasingly more important priority with age. And even there, with respect to where individuals get their vehicles serviced, if they're going exclusively to a dealership for their maintenance and repair, 3/4 of those customers are sensing or are feeling M&R is a high priority. That number is roughly half, roughly 50% for individuals who are using an ASP, whether in combination with the dealership or exclusively. It's kind of an interesting difference in the market segments there, depending on where they're going. On to the next slide, but I think at this point we're already starting to have a really good sense of the landscape of the marketplace. I'd like to get James involved in the conversation now to get a bit of a sense of what he's getting from this.
Hey, thanks so much, Rick. Great opportunity here for us in the automotive aftermarket. It's an absolute wake-up call that I'm taking away from the insights within this report in terms of what consumers are looking for and their priority that they're putting in place with respect to maintenance and repair. And so that's an absolute wake-up call for us in the industry to really begin to step up our game and to improve the type of communication that we're having with vehicle owners as it relates to the ongoing maintenance and repair of their vehicle. Significant opportunity for us, and want to continue to see us seize that opportunity with improved communication and obviously making better connections in terms of experience with consumers, because they're telling us, and that's what's so great about this report. There's absolute nuggets within this report in terms of what vehicle owners are telling us.
And gentlemen, if I hear you right, it really is the type of information that starts to give us a bit of a look into the future, right? We always think about our post-pandemic situations, and you really think that it really starts to give a bit of a roadmap for people in the industries as we move into our new future, our new normal.
Absolutely, JF. It's very clear from not only this report, but many of the reports that Rick has contributed and AIA has contributed. Canadians are looking to get back out and visit family and utilize their vehicles more than they have pre-pandemic. And that entire cost in terms of the budget to maintain their vehicle is of greater concern with higher inflation, higher gas prices. We're all experiencing this requirement for us to be diligent in these investments that we've made. And quite clearly, consumers are looking for this. What I loved about one of the earlier slides in terms of that perceived knowledge that Rick spoke to, it's absolutely that. We all know that for those of us that are in the industry, we tend to get the men and just our customers in general seem to appear that they know more than they really do. Because let's be honest, when that the check engine light goes on, they're a fish out of the water. They don't know what to do, and so clearly our level of technical expertise really needs to come across in clear language, so that not only that they can understand, but we can really begin to help them plan accordingly as it relates to that ongoing management of this very large investment that they've made.
Yeah, it's a tight wire act for sure, and it's something I've been echoing since easily 2016. Is that how do you talk to people who are convinced that they know their stuff and they're staying on top of things, when in fact when you look under the hood, or you're in the pit and you're looking up and you're going, it's not really happening.
So, gentlemen, I want to cue in a few of the questions we've got from the audience in advance of today's webinar. And the first one I want to bring to your attention is, the question was asked, how will demographics such as aging and gender affects consumers' maintenance decisions? So I'm not sure what's your take on this?
Well, I can certainly take a first crack at that. I mean, we saw clearly in those first couple of slides that age and gender are significant factors in terms of how they view the importance of maintenance and repair, and their self-perceived knowledge around maintenance and repair. And that has ultimately has impacts on the decisions that they're going to be making, right? And what they need to hear from the service advisor, their ability to pay for maintenance and repair is certainly different when you're 18 to 34. You're maybe fresh out of college or university. Maybe you have a significant amount of debt. Maybe you're starting to build a family. Your decisions and priorities around maintenance and repair are going to be fairly different from somebody who has kids are there, the home is bought, the mortgage is established, they've got into a bit of a groove around their budget, but they still have significant debt, versus somebody who's later in their age, house is paid, maybe no doubt the financial situation is a little different. So life stage for sure is having an impact on decisions. What do you think, James?
No, absolutely. And I think this just kind of goes to this kind of broader discussion that we have with our clients and performance coaches and us in the industry that are continuing to look to help these automotive aftermarket shops get ahead, which is this approach to thinking about the business differently than we did a decade ago. It's time to slow down. It's time to really have these more thoughtful, intentional conversations with our clients, and really treat them as such, to better understand the use of that vehicle, to better understand the circumstances that they find themselves in with this large investment that's been made, and this investment that they want to protect. And so clearly, if we can really begin to have those conversations, step away from that counter and really begin to engage them as individuals that have some anxiety about managing this large investment, we'll be miles ahead.
That's great. Gentlemen, I'm going to actually ask you a second question that also was provided in advance of today's webinar, and that is, what cultural barriers may need to be addressed for vehicle repair? So I'm not sure what will be your take on that one.
Well, I mean, as rich as our data set is around this particular study, we didn't really dig into the cultural element there, JF. So I don't have that at my fingertips. So it'd be certainly an interesting aspect to unpack for future studies.
Yeah, my comment would be quick there, just in terms of, clearly depends on the demographic, geography specifically, and the particular community within a particular shop owner, and kind of where they're looking to draw business from. A lot of our clients are scattered across both rural markets and major markets, and yes, the clientele is different. They do see more diversity, depending on where they are geographically, and no different than, as I said before, it behooves us to really get out and get to know our customers, to know the communities that we're operating in, and make ourselves part of that community, and the vehicle owners and those homeowners that we want to service, for sure.
Great, thank you.
Certainly, if you bring in the newcomer perspective around that, JF, that's a different angle entirely, right? Certainly, a lot of the work I've done with newcomers in general would suggest that they have a lot on their plates, and that maybe staying on top of maintenance and repair may not be in fitting into the top 10. They're making sure that they're established. They have a home. They have maybe language training is involved. The list goes on and on. So from a newcomer perspective, it's a different conversation there.
Great point. I do have a live questions for Jane, who just came in. It says, are there any large-scale marketing tactics in place to raise consumer awareness on the importance of maintenance and repair?
Great question. It really just depends on, we see individual automotive shop owners and kind of how they want to approach it. Depends if you're in a network that has some more consistent brand messaging and communication. We do work with networks that have improved their level of communication as it relates to maintenance and repair, and the investment that they're encouraging their potential customers and new customers should be seeking to manage effectively. If you're an independent service shop today, yes, I would encourage you to spend some time with your team and really begin to talk with your team first about how you want to approach your dialogue and conversations with the customers. But that all requires, though, this kind of slowing down, where we're not really just trying to rush someone through our facility as quickly as possible. Yes, time is of essence, but we really need to demonstrate to our customers that we want to slow down and have conversations with them about their vehicle and how they're looking to ensure that they get the most out of that investment for the engineered life of that vehicle. And so that's a lot of open-ended questions, and certainly there's general resources out there that you can tap into, and there's certainly lots of networks and associations that if you're not part of, you should, because there's a lot of best-in-class sharing of those types of topics that we're seeing.
That's great. Well, thank you very much, gentlemen. In mindful of time, so we're going to move now to our second section, our second segment, which is how do ASPs get through to customers? So I know there were some questions asked, and again, I'm going to pass it back to Rick to present the finding of the research. Rick?
Well, this is actually a really nice segue from the conversation we've just been having around what is it that we need to be communicating? What kind of a conversation do we need to be having with consumers? So it's all around the conversation. The first slide I do want to show, though, is a little bit of research that we did around the reminders. And this was a particularly interesting exercise that we did in the survey. We actually presented respondents with a fairly long list of different ways that they could be reminded of their maintenance and repair. Ranging from the classic traditional sticker inside the windshield all the way to more kind of cutting edge types of technology-based reminders, which could include having an app on your smartphone that is wirelessly connected to your vehicle and keeps you up to date in terms of maybe a little bit of the wear and tear the vehicle is going through, and some reminders around when they need to be going for their maintenance and repair. And we asked respondents how useful they would consider these various approaches. And what we are seeing here, it's summarized nicely on the slide, is the sticker inside the windshield still remains one of the more popular approaches. Now, again, the ASPs will probably, who are watching this, are probably in a better position to tell us whether that approach is actually working. Yes, a lot of people find it helpful, but is it actually hitting home? Is it actually making sure that people are showing up when they should be showing up for their prevent and their general maintenance and repair? Another appealing or helpful tool, just still back on that previous slide there, JF, sorry, was the classic red light in the dashboard. So a reminder via the vehicle's dashboard system. I remember back in 2016, respondents saying, listen, as soon as there's something kind of red flashing inside of my dashboard, I bring her in. So that 74% probably rings true a little bit there on that front. But these other approaches that are much more technology-based also garnered quite a bit of appeal around respondents, especially among the younger audiences. And you'll remember from earlier slides, these are individuals who are sensing they are, in fact, less knowledgeable around maintenance and repair. They are less likely, in fact, to consider maintenance and repair a priority. So if maybe through technology, there is a way to better remind these individuals, these younger individuals, or younger vehicle owners, about the importance of maintenance and repair. In terms of, once they're in the shop, once they're in the service center, now we can go to that next slide, Jeff. What is it that rings more important to to vehicle owners. So when you ask them, what are the reasons why you do stay on top of your maintenance and repair, safety comes out at the very top. So it's making sure that their vehicle is safe to operate. And then we get into things like, to prevent breakdowns, to extend the investment lifetime of their vehicles. If they've spent a lot of money on this thing, they want to make it last as long as possible. And certainly, again, to reduce the long-term expenses. So, a little bit of money spent right now can save you a whole lot of heartache and a big bill a little later down the line. So again, I think right now we're already starting to talk a little bit of James's language in terms of, well, what is it that a service advisor and techs should be communicating through to vehicle owners and help them appreciate a bit more the importance of that maintenance and repair, right, James?
Absolutely. As I said earlier, pure gold, this report is absolute pure gold as it relates to helping our ASPs get equipped on having these conversations. What I take away there is not only having those conversations, but to build some of that content within the websites that we have in terms of kind of what we do here at James Channer Automotive Services. We protect the investment of our customers' vehicles, and here's how we do it. Bam, 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 and use some of the insights that are here. This is what consumers are telling us they're looking for. They're looking to partner with us as trustworthy experts to help them maintain and protect this investment and to keep them safe. It's absolute pure gold. Back to one of the earlier slides around the sticker and the dashboard and then technology. Hey, listen, for those of us that spend a lot of time in automotive shops and work with business owners within our industry here, that nice little oil sticker reminders is all nice and good, but could you think about how long that would be if we included every single, service maintenance that we would like them to be prepared for? They wouldn't be able to see through their windshield if we filled that up. And so really this is our opportunity to take the direction that consumers are asking for. They want us to help them plan. They're looking for us to keep them organized. They're telling us that they want these notifications. And they already have a very powerful piece of equipment that has more technology in it than any of us have seen in our lifetime in terms of a smartphone. And so if we can improve the way that we can communicate through app and email and texting with our customers to help them make it easier and more simple to do these ongoing service intervals in their maintenance schedule that we can manage for them. That's what the progressive facilities are doing today. And, I encourage all of us to be thinking about all these great insights that we're getting from this report.
Do you have a number, James, in terms of, a little bit of money spent now will save you X amount down the line?
Oh, great point, Rick. Yes, there was a stat that we were able to pull out in a larger study that we participated in. For every dollar that a consumer spends in maintaining preventative maintenance and service on their vehicle, saves them $15 in actual repair cost in the future. So again, just a great type of stat to be able to communicate this to your consumers as you're having those conversations to help them plan accordingly, because they're already saying it in this report. They're concerned about some cost of a repair into the future that they haven't planned for.
I would probably put my marketing hat on and say for every $100 that you spend now, you'll save.
Exactly. 15 times $1,500. Absolutely. I like that.
And I want to chime in also on the conversation. I know in a previous webinar, we talked about, how consumers through the pandemic found it, that the capacity to be able to book online and having those reminders was something that they really wanted to, wish that consumer will, that we will continue to provide post-pandemic. So I think it really goes about showing that the consumer, in fact, are looking for those different ways of being notified, and through your cell phones and new technology. Gentlemen, we've also received a few questions in advance of today's webinar, and one is sort of related to this topic, which is, what is the frequency of service reminders that owners finds acceptable? When does it become annoying?
Yeah, great question. I think it really kind of leans to this theme that we have in our conversation today with respect to building this ongoing communication with your customers. If you're talking to a customer about the mode of communication that they're looking to communicate with you, and then you can have that conversation about the ongoing maintenance and service of their vehicle ongoing, and the kind of frequency that you'd want to suggest based on their driving habits, right? The investment that they've made in the vehicle, the longevity of that vehicle, what you're currently finding in the inspection and the inspections that you do, all of that would tie in. So I would encourage any ASP to be able to have different channels of communication that you're willing to utilize, and then to talk to each of your customers about the frequency of that communication based on their driving habits that really falls into the type of schedule and planning that you'd like for them to work with you in partnership, because that's exactly what it is. Any other thoughts, Rick?
Yeah, it boils down to customization. Anything that's kind of automatically it's kind of spit out every 6 months, presuming that this is when the vehicle owner should be coming back in to get their vehicle maintained, I'm of a view that that's more likely to annoy the customer than be seen as helpful, because they look at that and they go, well, what does so-and-so ASP or so-and-so dealership, for that matter, what do they know about how much I've been driving my vehicle? Maybe it's been sitting in the garage for the last 8 months, and yet they're sending me this reminder that I need to bring it in.
So
to them, they kind of look at that a little sideways. Anyway,
having as much intelligence and information about the consumer, so we really relate in a way that makes sense to them.
Absolutely.
Right. One more question. The other one was, how long after a vehicle was serviced should a reminder go out for services that were deferred? And I know we've just covered that, but would you expand on that as well a little bit more?
I'll go first. Yeah, sure. Thanks. I'll jump in. Yeah, again, I think we're really just reiterating, some of the same points here in terms of, building that type of expectation is really key in terms of when those reminders go out. We all know that for those of us that spend a lot of time in automotive shops with business owners, there's a struggle to keep up with this deferred work, right? That, customer A came in. We did a changeover on their tires. We did an oil change. We found that based on the current state of the pads and rotors, that they don't need a brake service today, but that replacement may look to happen in a few months, dependent upon 2 months, let's say, dependent on their driving habits. And so having that conversation, right, post-service in terms of the maintenance, ongoing service intervals of their vehicle becomes key, because that may become a safety issue in the future that you want to remind them of. And so it will depend on the type of communication you're using. If you're simply just using phone calls, it might be difficult to actually get them live on the phone. Because I don't know about a lot of you that I have a smartphone. I don't barely use it for calls. I use it for other modes of communication. So if you have other modes of communication that you're deploying in your facility, you'll have a better chance to remind them and to keep them safe and to keep that investment protected.
That's great. Gentlemen, we're now going to move along to the third segment for today, which is, so where do vehicle owners go for maintenance and repair? And again, back to Rick to present the findings. Rick?
Thank you, JF. So now we're officially, folks, making the transition from that first report, which is currently available on the AIA website, to the second report around maintenance and repair, which is coming out on April 21st, and where we're starting to sink our teeth a little bit into the decision factors that come into play when vehicle owners decide where are they going to take their vehicle, what are their views around the aftermarket versus a dealership. So the first thing we need to understand, first and foremost, and this number isn't up on the slide here, is that there's about one out of 10 Canadian vehicle owners who are DIY, complete, total DIY. They do it themselves, or they know somebody who comes in and gets their vehicle maintained and repaired without having to go into a dealership or an ASP. Those who do use an ASP or a dealership, you see the breakdown here on the slide. So it's fairly evenly split, actually. 26% always go to a dealership, 22% never go to a dealership for their maintenance and repair. And then you have about half the market who are splitting between dealerships and ASP. So kind of a good news, bad news here for the aftermarket. The good news is that the aftermarket, if you look at this, the aftermarket is seeing 3/4 of the car park at any given point in time. The bad news is that, well, so are dealerships. they're getting under the hoods of 3/4 of the vehicles out there as well. Now, in terms of some of the decision factors, if we go on to the next slide, JF, really interesting, the lines of questions that we asked around vehicle owners' perceptions of dealerships versus ASPs versus independent service shops. And we asked them to compare them head to head, again, generally, on a variety of factors. And what we found out through this research is that by far, independent service shops are seen as outperforming dealerships in terms of value for money, by far. So there's a recognition there. There's an understanding. There may even be an entrenched expectation that ISS's, independent service shops, are going to be less expensive or to use other words, better value for money compared to dealerships. They're also seen as being more trustworthy, not by as big of a long shot as value for money, but they have a bit of an edge in terms of being more trustworthy. Where dealerships are seen as having a bit more of an advantage, ever so slightly though, would be things that are at the bottom of this slide: having a service provider help with understanding M&R, technical competence, delivering the vehicle on time, and having a courteous or professional customer service. There's kind of slightly edging out ISSs on that front. Where the gap is a little bit wider in favor of dealerships comes in terms of having clean, or being seen to having clean and tidy shops, the length of the warranty, quality of work and auto parts, and being proactive in letting them know when they need their maintenance and repair. So some really interesting results here. I'm sure James is going to be all over this slide in a short moment. And if we go to the next slide, Jean-Francois. So not only do we have these just to some extent perceptions that dealerships outperform ISSs on a variety of fronts, but what ISSs are also combating are is a little bit of myth out there. So there's a need to some extent for the industry to be out there and doing a little bit of myth busting. We know that many vehicle owners are going to their dealership exclusively, if not in part, because of the warranty. The warranty is a significant driver that gets people going towards their dealerships, but we cannot ignore the fact as well that 38% of vehicle owners out there also have this feeling that technicians who work in a dealership are better trained to repair and maintain their vehicle. As well, 31% sensing that they believe that if their car is under warranty and they bring it into a chain or an independent service shop for repair, the warranty is nullified. In fact, I remember for that specific question as well, there's a whole chunk of consumers out there who have no idea. They couldn't even rate their level of agreement on that particular statement because they simply did not know. So again, some additional hurdles that ISSs need to overcome in order to kind of get into the consumer mindset and get them coming to them instead of the dealership. If we go to the next slide, to JF.
Well, I think that covers all the slides we had for this section, Rick. Yeah, for sure. And I got to jump in because not overly surprised, a little disappointed to hear that consumers still believe that they're going to void the warranty if they go to an aftermarket shop. And just remind everybody that we did a lot of work at AIA on this, and there is a notice to consumer plaque you could or sign that you could download from our website that explains that in very clear terms that in fact that as long as you follow the repair procedures or maintenance procedures outlined by a manufacturer, you're not going to void your warranty by going to an aftermarket shop for your maintenance and repair. So doing a little work on this, but I guess the perception's still out there, right, Rick?
Yeah, and it hasn't shifted all that much. So we have seen some improvements on the perceptions of technical competence. So that 38% was the number. That number used to be 51% as recently as 2019. So that 38% at the top of the slide. So again, hard to say at this point. We just have a couple of tracking data points there. Is this an aberration, this 38%, or is this a trending in the right direction, certainly from an aftermarket perspective?
James, I'm sure you got a lot to comment on these recent slides, don't you?
Yeah, absolutely. Again, just pure gold, pure gold, pure gold in what we're seeing here. Again, consumers are continuing to give us the roadmap with respect to where their expectations lie. What I love is that it's pretty much an even playing field when you look at the dealerships and ASPs, and we have something that consumers are telling us. They trust us. They trust us. And what they are looking for, they're giving us how can we then measure up? They're saying, and what they're saying isn't significant, huge investments. It's cleaning the facility, maybe having to renovate that bathroom that we haven't renovated in over a decade, maybe some paint, cleaning up. And so I see such a tremendous opportunity for many that to go after these opportunities because the barriers and the hurdles are low. For those that have already made those types of investments in time with their teams, though the other area of that slide talked about the technical competence. And so again, yes, we want to download that link that JF mentioned that the AIA provides. We also have to be proud and communicate and present the level of investment we're making with our technicians. We can't only just put the plaques up in our facility. That's all nice and good, but you want them to first get to your facility and they're checking you out online. And so you have to ask yourself, what does the content of my website look like? Have I actually updated that content to make myself more visible and relevant for what consumers are looking for? And in terms of then keeping up with that investments in terms of training and competence, there's technology out there today that training can be delivered in digital ways that we haven't seen in our industry before. So I'm very excited in some of the technology that I'm seeing that's starting to enter and that aftermarket automotive shop owners are investing in. So kudos to those that are leading the way, and let's get the rest of us moving in that direction.
Absolutely.
And I think the fact as well, folks, that ASPs we're leading in two dimensions, price and trustworthiness. It just goes to show how important those elements are at the end of the day. Because we remember one of the first slides I showed was, if you will, to some extent, the market share. They were more or less at par there in terms of the dealerships, and yet when we looked at that slide, it looked like the dealerships should be winning hands down all the business out there. But no, that's not the case. What seems to matter, or what's coming across quite clearly there, is that again, value for money, which is a little different from price, and trustworthiness weigh heavily in the minds of a lot of consumers. And we're going to get into that trustworthiness piece in the next segment.
Yeah, it really comes down to trust for sure. Gentlemen, one question was sent in advance again, and that question is, what does consumer look for in value of an aftermarket shop? And is it price? Is it the quality of the workmanship, the convenience? We talk about trust here. Would you venture to provide a response to this?
Sure, I'll go ahead. Go ahead, Rick.
No, go ahead, James. You go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. We touched on it before. This idea around we have to put ourselves out there to exude this confidence and professionalism that we have in our business, in our people, and the investments that we've made, where it's clear consumers are asking for us to be more confident in making these recommendations ongoing and to communicate with them on a regular basis. And so what we see in many shops, unfortunately, is that they haven't kept up with the automation of technology and the automation and the digitalization of communication. And what I mean by that is not just leaning on the phone as much as we have, but using our digital presence, using texting and other technologies to help notify and to demonstrate that value and that level of professionalism to the vehicle owners and consumers that we're working with, because that's what they're looking for. They need help in managing the ongoing maintenance of their vehicles, and they're asking us for that help.
Great. I got one question. It came through the live channel, and it's for you, James. It says, any tactics you can share on how to convert OEM dealers' customer to non-OEM repair shop?
Yeah, that's certainly a great question. And every consumer has, different motivations that are all going to come down to that same aspect that Rick and his team were able to pull up in this report, the value and the trustworthiness. And so you've already got that positioning. And so then now it just takes to slow down and to have those conversations with that consumer, and being very direct. What is it about dealership A that you really like? What is it about dealership A that you don't like? All right, well, here's how we do things at JC's Automotive Services, right? And then demonstrate that confidently, because what we see that, again, as we talked about in some of the earlier series that we've done, we see that the marketplace is very robust in terms of demand that's out there. You can be very selective about the type of customers that you want to partner with. If you're slowing down and making those types of investments in equipment and your people, then you want a type of consumer that's going to appreciate those investments that you've made and that are willing to work with you on a plan to manage this large investment on a budget over time. And some customers are going to like that, others won't. If he doesn't or she doesn't, then maybe they're not, the client that you're looking for.
Right. Great. Gentlemen, fantastic. Let's again move ahead to our fourth and last segment on how can ASPs increase loyalty. And so for that section, again, back to you, Rick, to present the results.
Yeah, so what we're essentially doing here is we're building on this notion of trust. We've already started hammering away at that in the last couple of segments, how important trust is. To maybe hammer that home a little bit more, certainly vis-a-vis price, is we have this first slide that helps us understand from a loyalty perspective. Yeah, there are a lot of numbers on this slide, folks, but it's really the first two rows that matter the most. What we essentially did is we asked respondents, what does your favorite independent chain or service shop do to keep you coming back? So we're trying to understand loyalty here. And we did a little bit of segment analysis here based on how long they've actually been using that particular their favorite chain or independent service shop. And what we're starting to see, yes, overall, if we look at that overall number, wow, my goodness, yeah, price is important. But what's even more important is transparency, trust, quality of customer service. And this was a completely open-ended question. We didn't kind of feed them any particular keywords or sentences here. And what we're seeing is as we look across that table from left to right, the longer an individual has been with their ISS or with their ASP or their chain, the more dominant or the more predominant that first row becomes. And price starts to take a little bit more of a back seat to transparency. It's also taking a bit more of a backseat to the third element in that table, which is the technician's knowledge of the vehicle's needs. So this is going to a bit of a foreshadowing to one of my later slides around. There's a sense that as I go to the same shop time and again, they know my vehicle, they understand my vehicle. So again, it comes down to that personalization of service. Onto the next slide. Again, trying to understand trust and how to unpack trust and what drives trust, because we're already clearly communicating, James and I, that trust is an important piece here. We asked participants their views on 4 tactics. Now, this isn't meant to be a recipe. You're not intended to kind of look at this and go, I need to do exactly this. But it gives you certainly an idea of the kinds of levers that you can start pulling to increase trust in your technicians and your shop. So things that are coming out would say, so 67% of vehicle owners are saying that their trust would increase if their shop always had the same tech working on their vehicle. Oh, goodness. Again, I foreshadowed that a little bit on my previous slide. 66% are telling us that if service centers spent more time explaining, to use James's words, slow things down. If the service center spent more time explaining and showing them how certain repairs or maintenance have an impact on the safety and reliability of their vehicle. As well, 64%. If the service center had a better way of helping them plan for short, medium, and long-term repairs and maintenance. We know from previous research, people don't budget for repairs, right? So with that sticker shock is always going to have them defer. And finally, 51%. And this, I think, is being done in some of the more progressive shops out there, is if the service center emails them a short video explaining the maintenance and repair they need and links to websites that explain what is involved and why that maintenance and repair might be important. So again, all of these, again, yes, it builds trust, but it also empowers. You're giving individuals knowledge and understanding, and that empowers individuals, and it empowers them to make what they would see as the right kind of decision around their vehicles. And why is that trust so important? Well, those individuals who are in fact trusting you can become spokespersons. If we go to the next slide, JF, trust and loyalty can make your customers your best salespeople. We know through this research that when individuals are looking across the market and they're trying to choose an ASP, and this is, again, folks, this isn't comparing dealerships to ASPs, this is ASP to ASP, what they're going to be turning to are recommendations from friends, family members, or colleagues. And then they will look at whether or not it's good value for the money, and then that it's nearby. So kind of that convenience factor among a list of a whole list of other factors that come into play there. But at the top here, the top three, they're going to be talking to other folks in their network. The next slide also hammers home the importance of that network and how important it is to make sure that that customer is leaving your shop very satisfied, so that they can in fact speak positively and promote your shop. And probably that promotion isn't going to be, oh, I just got a great deal on an oil job, right? An oil change. It's going to be other things that are coming into play. How they felt leaving that service center, how they were, what kind of service did they get, et cetera, et cetera. So again, the importance of trust and how that can have an impact on word of mouth and ultimately growth in your business. And just to wrap things up on this next slide here, JF, why is all this important? Well, again, we have to come back to the starting point with a lot of these vehicle owners, is that you have fully a third of your vehicle owners out there who, when they walk into a shop, 32% feel helpless or overwhelmed when they bring their vehicle in for maintenance and repairs. So certainly anything and everything that can be done to alleviate that stress and that anxiety is going to work in favor of the ASP. And again, James and I have been talking ad nauseum about the various strategies and tactics that can be considered, and how we chose the wording in that question is very important, right? It's how they feel, and they're feeling helpless or overwhelmed. And feeling is important, right, James?
Oh, absolutely. Maya Angelou, the great author, said it best. I've learned that people will forget what you said, people will forget what you did, but people will never forget how you made them feel. And so what are we talking about here? Dozens and dozens and dozens of automotive service providers we talk to and work with, when we ask them the question, what's your competitive advantage? They'll say service. Okay, great. Everybody says that. And so there's a big difference between the service that we deliver and the experience that the consumer felt. And so Disney does this very well. Apple does this very well in their Apple retail locations, right? Starbucks does this very well. We in the industry need to spend some more time. It would serve us better to spend more time with our teams to talking about creating experiences. Those experiences will leave these consumers feeling a certain way. And if we can help them, relieve some of that anxiety that they're feeling, and we can build the confidence that they have in us, and we're using modes of communication to do that, and we're making some of these connections, we'll be in great shape.
Yeah, we can't ignore the fact that if they leave feeling worse than than when they came in, they're going to remember that too. So not only are they going to remember a really positive experience and how they felt, right, positive, but it's double-edged. It can work. It can just as easily work the other way as well.
Absolutely.
So James, I think you have a personal story you could share about that, is how you're being able to experience building the trust with a customer. I'm getting someone in my ear that tells me that there's a great story you could tell about that.
Yeah, speaking to this very progressive shop, and they've adopted this philosophy, and they talk to their team about it on a regular basis. And so what happened in this one instance, consumer came in, spoke to the woman. She's a mother. Her youngest child now went off to university. So it's in the fall. She's talking about this experience now that she's packed her youngest daughter away to the university, and she's not going to see her until later in the year. And so she was clearly, both happy and a little sad at the same time. Well, when the customer came back to pick up her vehicle, what she found inside the vehicle was a coffee cup of that university logo and a little card to say, "Hey, congrats for being, a Waterloo University mom. So happy for you. See you soon." What a connection that was made. It's because that service advisor slowed things down, had a real conversation, right, with that customer, not just specifically about the vehicle, but about her life and what she was going through, because that's very important to this to this team and to that leadership there. And just kudos to the progressive shops that are taking their time to make those personal connections. And that's not difficult, and it doesn't cost a lot of money, but boy, does it change the way people feel.
What a great
James,
story.
do you suspect that might have cost them a little bit less than a pair of free wipers?
Yeah, absolutely. It goes without saying it. The way we make people feel is significant. I just kind of quickly want to jump back to three things that I wrote down when Rick, you were going through the last segment. Communication was key again. This planning exercise that we need to be having with our customers, and then that explanation. And then those ongoing alerts and notifications will raise our level of professionalism in their eyes. And so if we can continue to do that, I'm very confident that not only will have this level playing field, but we'll clearly begin to move ahead of this perceived, experience of professionalism that dealerships have. Because I know a lot of progressive shop owners in the ASPs that are doing these things, and I'm very confident more will.
Great. James, there's another question that came through the live chat, and it reads, so what lines are independents able to use in combating the free services that's offered by dealership? Any idea of how to respond to that?
Yeah, I think it's just this ongoing continued recognition that we in the ASP environment have to have that exudes this confidence and this level of professionalism when we're working with customers and building these plans. If someone is expressing something free, then the question then becomes, well, is price of concern for you? Well, yes, it is. Well, tell me a little bit more about that. Well, I'm managing this vehicle and I'm very concerned about how much it might cost me. Okay, well, here's what we do at our facility. We help you plan accordingly. We actually build and coordinate and communicate with you because so really was it just about price, or was there something more there? And that's what I really loved about this survey, this report specifically, in the survey that Rick and his team did. It gave us those nuggets. A third of vehicle owners are feeling overwhelmed, and many of them aren't planning these ongoing schedule of their maintenance of their vehicles, and they think they're that knowledgeable, but we know they're really not. And so really what they're saying is that they're scared, they're confused, they can't plan accordingly. And so we just need to get through these conversations to be able to then pull this out, to then be able to communicate the plan that we have at our facility to help alleviate that stress and anxiety, to have confidence in a plan, to work with you and a partner. Because at the end of the day, price becomes an issue when there's an absence of value, and that just came through in this report. They see us as value because they know we do a lot. We go above and beyond in our service. That's great. Now we just need to take it to the next level.
Right.
And you need to ask yourself as well, what kind of customers do I want to attract? I mean, do I want to attract promo chasers?
Yeah, that's a good question. Good point.
A bit of a race to the bottom.
Yeah. So one more question came through the question in advance of today's webinar is how to best recommend maintenance items when the customers don't feel it's necessary. So not sure if you could provide some insight on this, James.
Yeah, sure. I'll start. We've got clients that have built little booklets that they have at their service counters. We've got clients that we've helped build out their content relative to what's on their service pages, describing all the different services that they offer at their facility, but not only what they offer, but more importantly, why they recommend it. We've got clients that are building videos to actually explain why we recommend transmission flush. And so if you think about your business more holistically, not just about who you're servicing in front of you, but who may be searching for you online, because consumers are looking to consume this type of information and they want confidence in why you recommend what you recommend. And so as one of the points that Rick's survey presented today, that if you want to build that level of trust, if you were to email videos or using digital vehicle inspection, so what consumers are saying, I don't want the pressure of maybe just trying to, demonstrate to you how knowledgeable I am or not when I'm standing in front of you. But if you give me the ability to kind of digest some of this information at my own pace, that would be helpful. If you emailed it to me, if you showed me pictures and videos, that's what they're saying, because they have a high level of anxiety around something that they're really not confident in, because what they fear is they don't want to get they don't want to get oversold because they've got that fear, and they just want to make sure that the investment that they make is the right investment, because they all want to protect the investment of their vehicle. So yeah, to me, it's just really this improvement of this ongoing of our business operations and the processes that we need to deploy to be best in class ASPs.
That's great.
Yeah, and I think that I've heard some ASPs out there are so brave to suggest to customers, listen, here's the quote, here's our recommendation, here's the video, here are the links. Heck, go get a second opinion. You have all the information that you need. If you don't believe us, go ask 2 or 3 other shops and see what they come back with, and you'll see that we're transparent, we're being truthful, we're being trustworthy, and we have your best interests at heart. And more often than not, I would imagine the customer is going to go back to that first shop who sent them that initial. Again, assuming all answers come across fairly equal.
Right, gentlemen. Probably we have time for one more question that came from the live feed, and it reads: how do we place the pricing of maintenance and repair to transparently show consumers a price before the execution?
Yeah, great question. I've heard some anxiety from ASPs in the past relative to kind of my door rate, where we've seen a tremendous increase in pricing and the cost of doing business. We're working with progressive shops from coast to coast, where we've encouraged them, in these performance groups and classes that we're involved in, to really maintain a level of pricing that supports the type of investments that you're making. And time again, we just aren't seeing that consumers are that sensitive to price adjustments as it relates in the current climate that we're in, which then really leads us to believe, based on this evidence, that we as an industry as a whole need to continue to cost fairly and price accordingly for the investments that we're making, to be able to serve and maintain these highly technical, complex pieces of machinery. There's more lines of code in today's vehicle that's in a space shuttle. And so consumers, although may perceive that they have the knowledge, but are willing to, listen to us when we're providing these recommendations soundly with enough evidence, and we're doing it consistently. If we're doing that, price doesn't really become an issue when there's value being delivered.
Right. I want to take the opportunity maybe to mention quickly, I think you're all aware that there was recently a new opportunity from the government called Grow Your Business Online. It's a grant program that is targeting about 90,000 small business to take advantage of e-commerce opportunities. And I guess this is a great way for ASPs to be able to get access to funding to really accelerate their engagement in e-commerce, I guess, right?
Yeah, great point, JF. Thanks for bringing that up. Absolutely. Every single ASP should be doing the evaluation to figure out where they are on, in terms of that roadmap of becoming and deploying technology. It was a great program when I heard it went out, and certainly everyone should be seizing that opportunity to get those investments and find the right partners and companies to help you on that path.
Yeah, it's every small business, in fact, not just ASPs. Any small business who's listening today should look into this, because there are opportunities there, not just to kind of boost up your website, your online web store, but also make yourself more present in social media. All of which are things that are important to consumers.
Absolutely. Gentlemen, listen, this is all the time we had. We've just plowed through so much information. I want to thank you both for great insights and great informations for AI members and ASPs. And I'm looking forward to our next engagement again to bring, again, more information about consumer behaviors to AI members. Thanks again, gentlemen.
You're very welcome.
So again, in closing, I guess, please go download the complete report. It's available on our website. You'll find a link in the chat. Please also keep an eye for our feedback survey so we can continue to improve on our webinars and our research project as well. And until next time, well, take care.